He didn't cry out loud. He cried in silence. He smiled in public but battled storms in secret. Until one day, he picked up a pen and wrote what he couldn't say. Today, it's not about me. It's about a teenage boy who gave his pain a voice and found his way back to life. Hi, I am Alice Kidhui, the Bounce Back Coach. Welcome to episode 3 of the Bounce Back Voice podcast, a space where stories of pain, healing, and purpose remind you that your story isn't over yet. In this episode, we talk about something many people are afraid to say out loud: depression. Not in clinical terms, but in human terms. The kind of pain you carry with a smile. The kind that hides in silence. I'll be sharing a true story, with permission of course, of a teenage boy who was quietly drowning until he discovered something powerful: healing through writing. This is a story of grief, anger, faith, and breakthrough. Because even when your mouth is quiet, your pain is speaking, and it deserves to be heard, not judged. This teenage boy, the only son in a family forever changed by loss. When his father, once a drunkard, now gone by suicide, took his life, everything shifted. The unspoken expectation he would become the man of the house. He was the lastborn, still a child, yet suddenly burdened with adult responsibilities, torn between being a brother to his older sisters and a pillar for his grieving mother. At home, he tried to help but often shut himself in his room for hours or numbed himself with movies, which only made his mother angrier. Inwardly, he was drowning. In school, he pushed himself hard. Grades had to stay up all the same. He couldn't afford to break. Society expected him to be strong. The church expected him to stay pure. But the pressure was crushing him. The grief was unbearable. How could he still be normal when nothing about his life was? His anger had no outlet. He punched walls. With every hit, he was screaming silently for help. On our first coaching session, I could see that he was trying to be brave. He was a man after all. As we explored what could be bothering him, he was hesitant at first. But slowly, the pain that had been boiling inside masked as anger began to surface. He was so angry. How could his father commit suicide and leave him, the only boy, as the man of the house? How could he live up to expectations, turning into a man before he was ready? How was he supposed to navigate life when no one had shown him how to? These were questions he couldn't answer. He was furious, punching walls, crying, breaking down. He didn't know what to do with the weight he carried. Therapy helped, yes, but something was still missing. I suggested he try something simple but powerful, to start writing down his thoughts and feelings, things he couldn't say out loud. He began writing to his father, to God, to the confusion inside of him, to the sadness, the rage he had no words for. He shared with his notes the feelings that were crushing him. Several sessions in, I noticed a flicker of hope in his eyes. His smile was slowly returning. He started arriving early for our sessions, sometimes even before I did. At home, he became more intentional, helping his mother and siblings more. He stopped living in a cocoon at school and started stepping into more roles and responsibilities. Not everything was fixed, but he was no longer stuck. He literally bounced out of my office, a sign that the heaviness was lifting, and the boy who once punched walls was starting to heal from within. He found his voice in the pages of his notebook. It became his safe place, his release, the place he could say everything he couldn't say out loud. He wrote to God, to his father, asking questions he would never dare ask anyone. He wrote to the pain, the shame, the silence, and the more he wrote, the more he understood. He wasn't weak for feeling. He wasn't broken beyond repair. He was grieving. He was healing. He was becoming. And after all, he was human. His words became a bridge from confusion to clarity, from rage to reflection, from silence to self-awareness. And that breakthrough, it didn't come from therapy jargon or quick fixes. It came from the simplest, rawest act, telling the truth on paper. Not everything changed overnight, but something in him changed permanently. He no longer needed to punch walls to be heard. His notebook had him, God had him, and finally, he had himself. Depression has a voice. Depression isn't always loud. Sometimes it sounds like silence, a closed bedroom door, endless hours of scrolling or watching movies, avoiding people, irritability or anger outbursts, emotional numbness or detachment, using alcohol or distractions to cope, dodging questions when asked, physical complaints like back pain, fatigue, insomnia, saying I'm fine when you're far from it. Feeling like a failure for not providing enough as a student, as a mother, as a father, as a minister, etc. For this teenage boy, depression wasn't tears. It was numbness. It was punching walls just to feel something. It was isolating himself so no one would see the cracks. It was pressure bottled up in a boy too young to be a man and too broken to be a boy. But when he started writing, depression found a different voice. A voice that whispered, I don't want to feel like this anymore. A voice that asked, God, where were you when my dad died? A voice that finally said, I need help. That voice didn't scream, it didn't beg, it just spoke. And that was enough to begin healing. Because depression may silence you, but truth breaks the silence. Depression has a voice if we learn to listen. Healing began when he made a choice, not dramatic but deliberate. A quiet decision to stop just surviving and start reclaiming control. He no longer wrote to just release pain, but to reflect, to grow, to take responsibility. He started showing up, not perfectly, but differently. He supported his mother at home. He stepped up at school and offered empathy to younger boys walking through their own pain. He recognized his triggers. He learned to respond instead of react. He forgave where it hurt. He dared hope again. It wasn't that life had magically changed, but he had. By choosing healing, he reclaimed power that grief, anger, and silence had stolen. He was no longer just surviving the storm. He was learning to walk through it, stronger, clearer, and freer. You're not alone. Depression doesn't always scream. Sometimes it hides behind a smile, behind I am fine, behind perfect grades and endless responsibilities, behind anger, silence, withdrawal, or distractions like binge watching or overworking. It looks different in everyone. For some, it's constant fatigue. For others, it's lashing out, zoning out, or feeling nothing at all. For fathers, it may look like irritability, isolation, and drinking more than usual. For mothers, it may look like guilt, overwhelm, or shutting down emotionally while still functioning. For teens, it might be rebellion or perfectionism. For children, it may show up as stomachaches, clinginess, or even aggression. And if you're walking through it, hear this. You are not alone. It's okay to feel, it's okay to struggle, but it's not okay to stay stuck when there is help. Help may not come in the form you expect. Sometimes it's a safe space, a coach, a journal, or a moment of truth. You don't have to carry this weight alone. You're not weak, you are human, and healing is not only possible, it's worth choosing. If anything in today's episode starts something in you, maybe grief you haven't faced, anger you've buried, or questions that keep you up at night, I want to challenge you to pause. Not to push it down again, but to give it shape. This week, take 10 minutes, just 10. Sit with a pen and ask yourself, what am I carrying that's weighing me down, but I feel like I can't tell anyone? Let the words come, raw, messy, confused, painful. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be honest, because sometimes healing begins when we stop hiding from our own truth. If this episode starts something in you, don't leave it hanging. The boy wrote what he couldn't say, and it saved him. Maybe that's where your healing begins too. And if you're carrying something heavy, something you've never shared with anyone, maybe now it's the time to begin unloading it. Not out loud, not even to someone else, just to the page. Start with a sentence, a name, a date, a memory, anything. And if you're ready to take it deeper, use the links in the description below for more resources. You're not alone. Not in your silence, not in your healing, and definitely not in your comeback. This is the Bounce Back Voice, and I am Alice Gedhui, your coach and companion through the storm. Until next time, keep writing, keep rising.